Before we get started, I just wanted to give a really big shout out to Van James, who put in a ton of effort to find all of the photos that you guys are going to see during this, along with basically wrote the description and basically just a really big help in making this podcast. So just wanted to thank him for that at the beginning of the video, and now enjoy.
Hello and welcome to episode 5, I think, of the TV Test podcast. We have a very special episode with far too many people. We have the NIC special today, and we're going to be talking about how homemades and the NIC community has grown and changed over the years. With me, we have Aeromech, Nickrarri, we have Rob, DX,
hey,
and we have Van James, and I guess Will's here too.
What? Add Phil.
And everyone say hi, I guess.
Hey guys.
hey everyone.
I guess.
Hey.
Lord help.
Oh boy, this is gonna be fun. What's the first question, Dennis?
Okay, so let's start by just going around and telling the listeners who you are, why you're relevant, and I guess how you got there. So let's start with Chris, Aeromech.
Oh gosh, why am I relevant? I have no idea. Let's see, I started way back in the day, probably 2010, just starting out, just modding, and eventually I just did that so much, I kind of got bored of it, and I found this homemade scene. I was like, let's give this a shot. So I started doing homemades. My first one was absolutely terrible. My second one was slightly better, and then from number 3 on, it was just like, I was in love with it, and I just tried to do some really cool stuff and just optimize, and that's always kind of been my I guess, raison d'etre, is just find a goal and just attain it, depending on what it is, whether it's manufacturability or like power or whatever you want. But I do it as a fun little hobby, and I really love it.
All right, Nick, you want to go next?
Who? What?
Okay, never mind.
It's
We're
Will.
going to skip over Nick. Rob, do you want to talk about your entrance into NIC and what you're doing now, I guess?
Sure. Alright, so I'm DX. I joined the NIC in 2005, I think, on NerfHaven. And I would have even been here sooner if I knew there was even a community for this.
How many years is that now, Rob? What year are you on? So that's 12 years.
Yeah.
Are you not math, you fucking engineer?
You old man.
How many NIC wars have you been to?
Over 100.
100?
Just put that into perspective. Like, this man, you can't hit him if you're trying.
Quote unquote, watch out for DX.
Yeah.
I mean, you can
that's a
try.
thing.
You can try, but it might not be very successful.
He's mastered the art. There was one Nino where he didn't get hit a single time. That was also because we were all scrubs, but...
You're a
The
scrub.
Yeah.
Hopper Titan. They had a Hopper Titan, and they couldn't hit me with that.
If I'm at a Nerf war, I specifically aim for you, and I probably unload like 2 full hopper rounds, and you just go and just hit me like once, and I hate you for it.
yeah.
Do
Anyways.
you blow your load on him?
Every
Alright.
time.
Oh, baby.
Alright, who's next?
Dan, tell us about you.
Are we skipping Will? Okay, I joined the hobby the most recently out of everyone here, at least the DIY scene. I did Nerf mods when I was like a kid. Like really dumb basic stuff that were supposed to be tactical shit. I started off with like SuperStock stuff when it wasn't a big thing, and my first war was an APOC, I forgot what year, and I brought a pump action. I think it was a bolt action retaliator actually.
2014 ban, I think.
2014?
Yeah.
Oof. Yeah, but ever since then I fell in love with homemades. I don't purchase an ESLT, but I got a rainbow from the amazing Aeromech and put a
Hey, what up?
large spring in it. Yeah, 10 out of 10. Recommend his quality. Better deal over Nickrarri.
Oh boy. That,
Whoa,
hey,
whoa.
I agree.
Drama.
Shit. Alright, I guess on
to
that
be
note,
fair, yeah, if I can interject, to too, Nickrarri. To be fair, you do a lot more with like the more exotic stuff. Like you have the aluminum, like 100 tubes and stuff. I just don't mess with that because to me it's like heavier and more expensive, and it's not worth it for me.
Yeah,
but it looks amazing. Your aesthetics are great.
We have different approaches. I go for like, how can I have the best version of X, and then I try and see how I can achieve it at like all means possible. So like that generally means like doing like idiotic stuff like realigning a shell for 30 hours because it's not quite right, and it's just not worth the time. So
I want to add as a point to Aeromech's supreme quality. It has held up a 30 kilogram spring with a 6 1/4 inch draw for about a year and a half now. Still going strong.
Yeah,
I don't know. I don't know how that thing hasn't just exploded. Yeah.
Chris is all about practicality and functionality. Like I had one of his rainbows, which I used for 2 years straight, and like it still was working fine at the end of those 2 years that I used it. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and you did awesome stuff to it.
All right, Nick, talk a little bit while we wait for whoever the fuck this Will guy is to figure his shit out.
All right, so I'm Nick. I sometimes go by Nickrarri. I am not relevant. However, I've been on the scene for a decade now. And I do pretty much everything. Pretty much up until like this past year, it's been primarily homemade and NIC stuff. You know, your standard elitist douchebag from NerfHaven. However, I've never really posted on there. And then in the past year, I got into HVZ SuperStock things now that I'm at college. And I've kind of transitioned to doing a mix of both. I usually make one homemade blaster over the summer, maybe two, and then I make a couple SuperStock or HVZ blasters during the winter. I guess I'm kind of known for going all out, kind of the exotic high-end stuff that most people don't necessarily do, and I throw a lot of hours into my builds. So, different way of thinking of things. A lot of people here are like definitely more practical based.
War based, like.
Yeah.
I mean, it's fine to be aesthetic based.
I mean, like, I'm one of those people that like thoroughly enjoys using a plus bow. Like, I'll use that over a double rainbow just because I love the feel of it. So.
I'm here.
Ooh, yeah, that's where we differ.
Yeah.
So much.
I mean, like, I made a double rainbow, and I was like, here, Dennis, you use it for all of APOC. I'm going to be using my plus bow.
Outdated.
Yeah. It's fun. It's fun to feel like an elitist douchebag.
It's okay. It's okay. As long as you're having fun. That's what this hobby's about, right?
Double rainbows are better than plus bows.
My
DRs are really good.
My problem with double rainbows is like the weight and bulk. I mean, it's not that heavy. It's just the bulk.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Who am I? I was drafted into y'all's group last year. I joined Nerf the hobby in, I believe, 2010, 2011. Started out with YouTube, watched a fair amount of UIN 13, that type of thing.
Oh boy.
Anxious.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
And now I'm looking back and going, oh damn.
Yeah, his work was kind of crap.
I know that now.
It's sad.
I realized that pretty quickly. So, you saw Ryan make numbers in his work. I mean,
yeah,
pretty stark. So I got in there. My first modified blaster was a, Lanard shotgun. Love those things. Still use them.
Yeah. Yep.
Like I brought one to APOC, except it broke, which was really disappointing. But whatever.
You gotta do the make it go reinforcements.
Oh no, the screw port around the catch broke. It's ripped because I've taken it apart and messed with it sometimes.
Right.
Seen spring load, so I can't really complain.
Has it seen 30 kilograms?
What? I mean, it's got a pass spring stock. No, it's got a K25 section. K25 pass spring and like market long shot spring. So like it's not bad.
20 something kilograms.
See, I'm afraid that we're going to be talking about stuff like Dill Rainbows and passes and shit like that. And nobody's going to know what we're going to be talking about, and they're not to like piece it together.
All right,
Well, we can add photos. We have to send them all to Dennis.
Okay, so
Yeah,
here's what we're going to do now.
Let's add some photographs.
Here's what we're going to do now to try and avoid that stuff. Do you guys want to go through and just like think of all of the NIC specific terms and just like make a quick glossary before we start going into like the nitty gritty stuff?
Okay.
We can talk about that. Yeah.
I guess there's a couple different types of homemades. A lot of them are differentiated between like the type, how they catch, like how the plunger rod catches back. There is the rainbow, which has to do with circular catch mechanism inside tubes, and that's really like the most like robust and cheap way to do it. There is the down and dirty snap, which refers to using a clothespin with a nail going through it, which will catch on the plunger head. Those being cheap, and you can get all the supplies at a hardware store, but they fail pretty easy. Then there is the plus bow, which is kind of a more night finder or fire strike catching mechanism, where there's a whole entire box around the plunger tube that houses that. I think
the catching mechanism of that is kind of integrated into the whole body. So that was like the first one.
Right.
Hey Chris, would you like to talk about the sear carbines?
Oh, gladly. That's one
PCSR?
I'll talk about the sear. I'll mention the PCSR because the sear is much more popular. Right. The sear carbine like exploded in popularity. I checked the video the other day and it had 91,000 views. I was like, what the hell? So like people are actually watching that, building that. I think Craftsman built a couple. I saw you made like 3 of them at APOC. But yeah, that's basically just a if you're familiar with firearms, it's like almost like a rolling block. So you have a...
It's an open bolt. Yeah. It's like an open bolt.
Yeah, so you pull the thing back, and the locking mechanism is a plate or a block that pops up, and when you pull the trigger, it pulls that block down, and so now your piston that it catches can move forward. So it just prevents it from moving forward.
It's kind of like the modern day snap, in referring to a really cheap, like effective way to build the homemade.
Yeah, it's definitely more intensive than a snap, but I've built 3 snaps, and every single time they broke on me, so I was like, hell with this, I want something I can go today and build.
I was going to add PCSR is pretty awesome. That's like the basis for like the caliber because of the floating catch. ESLT, which is, I think, that also uses Aeromech, but it's
that uses
issue format. It's a sear carbine, but pump action and technically bullpup. Bullpup is used in the NIC. The bullpup definition is if the barrel is over the main blaster and not connected to the front. If you hear things referred to as a snap bow or a rainbow, that's just a snap. It's. I don't know why I have bow in front of everything. They're usually pump action or pullback.
Because the origin of that is from the
crossbow, right?
Yep.
It came from the original crossbow, Kenner crossbow, in like 1999 or whatever it was, or 1992.
There's the pullback, which also made by Chris, is just pretty cool. You want to talk about that, Chris?
Oh yeah, it's just a very simple rainbow locking action, and I had a pull bar coming from the bottom. And I based that off of the idea of one of the Kel-Tec designs, where there was actually your charging mechanism was behind your hand, and so I used the stock and integrated the actual locking your pullback bar into that. So that's really cool. I haven't made those in a while just because I've been moving around and things have been crazy though. So yeah, that's a cool one. There's a couple of those out there.
It's based off of Sub 2000, right? Kel-Tec Sub 2000.
Yeah, I think that's the one. That's the one.
And Rob, would you like to talk about air guns?
Sure.
Blow us away.
But they used to be really popular in NIC wars, and probably the most widely used one is the Busby Big Blast. We call it the 4B because there's 4 Bs in the name, and that's the FPS. The tank is massive, and it's got a backward pump, but a lot of people will replace that with a forward pump and then throw the whole thing into a new shell like a Raider or Rampage. Then we call that a 4BR. Sized air blaster, and it's also really powerful. And you can pocket that, you can holster it. It's really popular for like a sidearm loadout. And then a long time ago, we used to use like AirTech 2000s and 3000s, even like
4000s?
Supermax 3000s, yeah, 4000s too. And those were strong for a while. I actually saw someone get a bloody weld from a 2000 because it was brassed and plugged and everything. And a lot of those things are banned now, but they were fun back in the day.
Wait,
Sadly.
3Ks? Wait, 3Ks are banned?
I think
If you overhaul it and plug it, like those are actually really strong.
Yeah, there was a
Yeah,
time
I know,
when.
but are they actually banned?
I think they just are over the FPS limit, but some places are banned.
But if you plug it,
Yeah.
like, those are really powerful.
It's
Hey,
different for every game. Like whoever's hosting the game determines the rules, but like my rule is like don't plug it, but everyone plugs it anyway. So I don't even know how to.
Let me just put it this way: if you bring it to APOC, I'll say it's legal.
Okay.
I will pump it 50 times for you then.
It'll blow up.
I mean,
It'll
a lot of
blow up.
3Ks, a lot of 3Ks people expand the tank too.
Yeah, I mean, you could always like do what is it called, the mutton chops test, where you give it to mutton chops, and then he'll like pump it up as much as he can until the tank explodes.
Or the OPRV kicks in.
They have an OPRV, which is an overpressure release valve, and that will save you from rupturing your tank if you overpressurize it.
Yeah, generally speaking, you want to keep those intact. Otherwise, you're going to just be pumping it excessively.
Well, you should know how many times to pump. You should just count. But
Right.
Rob, would you also like to talk about the scepter?
So
I mean, we should have Zach on for this, but
we should.
And
this
Van, coming in on the clutch though, I forgot these things existed.
it's in the. I put it in the chat so you guys could talk about it because you guys have been here longer.
Oh, I'm not looking at the chat.
Yeah, the chat should have like there was like your inverse carbine. It was a pump action rainbow that was like a PCSR. Like the whole plunger tube moved back into the stock. I forgot what that was called.
Oh yeah, I just called it telescoping because so instead of having a pump grip, I just moved the entire plunger tube back and then back forward. So the thing was really light actually because you eliminated a whole outer thing, but I only made like one or two of those, but they were awesome. I actually should make another one.
Yeah, those are pretty cool. If Rob's not going to talk about the scepter, I can add on to it.
I was trying to, but you were talking over me. So.
I'm sorry.
So basically, a scepter is like a modified paintball marker. And you get a lot of quick shots that are about 4B power, and that starts to drop off. They're not even.
Rob, you're dropping out.
I am. Can you hear me now?
Yeah. Like you're just cutting out in the middle of the sentence.
Oh, that sucks. So where was I? With the huge hopper on top, and even we tried putting like tape on them. People still report that there's people playing with paintball, so we generally don't use them too often.
Yeah, they look like paintball markers. Who was it? I think Kyle, way back in the day, put like blue jeans and googly eyes all over his to like make it look as stupid as possible, basically.
that's a lot of the same reasons why we don't use HPA in the NIC scene in the Northeast. It's too similar to paintball. It causes issues with like police and whatnot.
Sound. Rip
Yeah.
PA nerf. PA died because everyone thought they had paintball and they had springers.
Right.
Yeah.
So did New Jersey.
Really, really, really important. And this is me, and I don't know. I think it was like Bobo who has like completely opposite views on this than me. But like, please paint your blasters like bright pink. Like, you're not cool for painting your PVC monstrosity flat black for $5 that you got from Walmart. I'm not
Right.
sorry.
Does that mean we transition now?
Yeah, sure.
Woo, fun
All right, so
transitions.
Next top. Oh wait, Dennis, why don't you speak on your experience?
What do you mean on my experience?
I mean, you joined recently, so you have a newcomer's perspective. We've been here for a while. We're a little established.
Oh, yeah.
And you kind of have a fresh feel of everything.
Yeah, so I basically played HVZ for 4 years and then was like, what's this NIC shit? And then I went to an NIC war. And I used, first I used Van's Loner Blasters, and then I used Nick's Double Rainbow for the rest of it. But it's a lot of fun. I honestly significantly enjoy NIC more than SuperStock, which is why I decided to have this episode in the first place, probably. But I want to like spread the joy of NIC, which is I think something that everyone here shares. Unfortunately, it's kind of declining, but hopefully we can turn that around, especially with Phil's Ultra Stock ideas and stuff, but we'll talk about that stuff later. But yeah, I kind of just hop straight from HVZ to NIC, which are like kind of the two opposite ends of the spectrum in a way of like the Nerf hobby. But yeah, NIC is a blast.
I think they're two different branches of a tree, or like you have the they're not. They're really different, but I think Rob can talk about his experience about how they were once integrated, and this leads us to our NIC experiences.
Oh yeah, okay, so in the early days of HVZ, there weren't really good blasters that were mag-fed or could shoot stock darts, and there weren't too many rules, so we just used NIC blasters in HVZ. They were like single-shot speed loaders or single fixed barrels. And I remember using a maximizer in HVZ, and all the zombies were scared of it, so they didn't go within 50 to 75 feet of me. So that was great. And we used like night finders and like 3Bs and stuff. I never used a 4B in HVZ. That would have been unfair, but we used today at all, like 200, 300 FPS.
Jesus.
For HVZ, that is no. Please no. Don't ever do that.
See, I having played some HVZ now, I have the opinion that I've had like more like pain inflicted to me playing HVZ than I ever had in NIC stuff. Because in NIC stuff, you're engaging each other from like 80 plus feet away, so you never really have like the the high impact of like muzzle velocity. You have all of that like decreased over the distance that you are from each other. Whereas with HVZ, whenever I become a zombie, I'm getting like full auto rapid strike 130 FPS to the chest, and it's not fun.
So you're saying,
yeah, that's why with HVZ, if I ever like do run a game, I'm like eye protection mandatory. That's always what I do for my stock wars. Even eye protection mandatory.
Eye protection should be mandatory. Oh, I also wanted to add. You never been point blank by me, Nick? Really?
I mean, like,
yes,
I have been point blanked by Van, but like that's just because Van's a dick, and it's not because like there's something fundamentally wrong with the game.
No barrel taps, no mercy.
You're going to get some close-up shots, and it's not very often, but once or twice per, I'd say, like game, like full day game, someone's going to hit you closer than you want, and whatever, it'll sting. If you ever played paintball, it's like not quite that bad, but like it'll sting.
Yeah, but like I still have like the firm opinion that like HVZ is like much worse in that sense, because like there's nothing worse than just like full auto rapid strike to the chest as a zombie from point blank.
I was just gonna add, it's sometimes point blank, but usually we have a rule. You could sometimes some people have barrel taps, where you could say barrel taps are like bang bang or something.
Yeah.
You tag them with your hand on the shoulder, not with your barrel.
Yeah.
No barrel taps, no mercy.
Yeah, well, that's an airsoft. You go bang if you're close, and they'll just take it usually.
Yeah.
Yeah, Van, you don't shoot someone in the dick.
Whoops. I'm sorry. You should have let me get that close to you.
Everyone who's confused by that, I'll post up a picture. I'll send it to Dennis.
It's a old... Phil's actually mentioning some things we should talk about. Like, the PAS, except no one uses that here.
I used the PAS once. That was a great blaster.
The AA bow. We have hamps. Hamps. I forgot about hamps.
Hamps are just something that, like, Kane used and tried to popularize, but they're really just crap. They're basically hand-actuated manual pump or some bullshit like that, and you basically pump it like you would pumping up like a standard pump, and it blows the dart out through basically a long blow gun.
It's the Demolisher launcher, the thing that uses to launch the rocket of the Demolisher. That's a ham.
Yeah, That's a amp.
Yeah, it's like that, except the actual hamps were like 3-inch diameter PVC and like
They were heavy
5
as
feet
hell.
long. So yeah, they
So
weighed
heavy.
like, I don't
Because
know.
you needed air volume for the power.
Those were also like good, easy blasters you could make in the hardware store.
But they were awful.
Yeah, they were.
Oh, yeah.
Oh god, I made one as a rocket launcher. They're not too great. He also
On like off type homemade stuff. There was also on the topic of mostly harmless arms and Kane and Ryan, they did the stand, and in the indoor war we had a couple years ago, he put that into an ESLT, and that thing was awesome. I think coupled with a primary blaster, you could just get out like, I don't know, 12 darts in like a second or something, and it was insane. It was a one you just blow straight into. Yeah, it was a blowgun that had a hopper, basically.
He also mentioned the PAS, the Caliburn AA bow, Doomsayer.
I'm sure everybody who's been on Reddit knows what the Caliburn is. That's basically
Ultimator, Maximizer.
Slug posting a new Caliburn like once a day.
Okay, so basically the Caliburn is what everybody now knows. It's basically a homemade long-shot-esque blaster where you can fire, I believe, full-length and half-length at around 200 FPS, or you can put in a K25 spring and bring that down to like 150-ish. So it's definitely really good because Slug like undersells his product and like sells them for like material costs. And I talked to him. I think that's because I'm going to quote him here, and he said, "My goal is to kill off SuperStock." And so he's trying to do that with the Caliburn by basically people, buy this blaster because it can provide both roles, and then they end up getting like outshot, and then they start using Steffens and convert over. So it definitely fills that role. It's a lot cheaper. It's a good entry-level blaster that everybody's been picking up recently.
Yeah, that's the first time I've heard that quote, but damn, credits to Slug.
That was at APOC, so...
First, OFP Phil plugin. Yo, Phil, where's your clips? Second, it's an updated rev shot, basically, isn't it?
Yep.
Yeah, I forgot about the rev shot.
No, the rev shot was like a very close direct copy of the long shot, as much of a copy as it could be. Whereas I feel like I feel like the Caliburn is a different animal. Honestly,
it's got a 6-inch draw, but
it's more kit-based.
I have complaints about the Caliburn, but I don't think it belongs here.
I don't know. It's yep. It's unfortunate that that the rev shot designs like in write-ups died with Nerf Revolution when that website went under out of nowhere. So.
There are a couple still out in the wild.
Edmund Sintram has one.
Yeah, Edmund. He brought one to my game, and I was like, you could reverse engineer that pretty easy.
I know Daniel Murphy has one up in Canada.
There is still like AABO, if we want to mention that. Pump action crossbows kind of mentioned. Doomsayer, PAS. You guys want to talk on that? I wasn't really there for that era.
Basically, Doomsayers are like the modified like Erdl blasters, and it has like 10 rounds pump action. They shot really hard, and they were kind of broken for the time that they came out in, but they were kind of hard to mod. Like, the main people who popularized it were Forsaken Angel 24 up in Canada.
That was kind of legendary. That was one of the Doomsayer. That is, it was one of those things that was just so flashy and so crazy that it was just like, wow, it has like 12 barrels or 10 barrels, like you said, sticking out the front, and it got probably comparable to today's homemade energies way back in like 2007. I don't know if I'm misspeaking there, but I heard the stories, and it was like the thing shot hard, basically.
Yeah, so basically it was really powerful, but also he could really rip off those 10 shots versus everyone else has a speed loader. Mm-hmm. So it was pretty broken compared to that.
But they were kind of hard to mod too. So like the only really people who had them were like people who commissioned them off of Forsaken Angel.
Yep. Yeah. They were also kind of finicky. Like his broke pretty hard.
Yep. Speed loader for for those tuning in, it's just tape 2 barrels together and then load one of them and then load the other one. And so you have 2 shots relatively quickly, but that's all you got, really.
Oh yeah, that leads to RSCB, Ys, and singles is just a barrel. You guys want to talk about Ys and RSCBs?
Yeah, sure. So basically, there's a couple different types of attachments. One, which already was mentioned by Chris, which is the speed loader. That's pretty self-explanatory. But there is a hopper, which is kind of the, what we use now pretty consistently in the NIC, which is basically a gravity-fed, clip of darts where each time you fire off, another one will seat down at the bottom of the barrel. So it allows you to have essentially semi-auto fire, which is really big. Before there was the RSCB, which was essentially the same exact thing as the hopper that we use nowadays. However, it was more streamlined to your blaster, but had the huge downside of you had to point your blaster down to seat the dart in the front every single time you wanted to fire. So generally, if you had like a pump action blaster, you had to tilt your blaster down to pump it, and then you could raise it back up to fire. So there was that major downside to using that. Then there's also like some spin-offs of using a brisket, which is essentially the same thing as an RSCB, but instead of using a 45-degree elbow and a Y. And so that was supposedly more air efficient because of the angle. And I don't know the fluid dynamics there, but and then there was the chopper, which was essentially a hopper with a RSCB mixed together, where you had some shots which were gravity fed, but then you had to like tilt down the blaster to feed the rest of the darts into the hopper portion of the
chopper.
Yeah, anything RSCB based though was kind of finicky to begin with. Like
it was.
I just had bad
clips.
luck with them. Yeah, anything with that nature, it's just some, like maybe one out of every, I don't know, 6 to 10 shots would not fire. I've had really bad luck with them.
Yeah, I'm not a fan.
There's also like inline clips, which I think Germany uses a lot.
Yep.
A lot of loose darts sitting in like PVC, and then you have the barrel, and it's like an RSCB, but at the end of the tube is a ton of darts, and a shotgun blasts everything.
Yeah, if you do it right, and you have like the perfect dart fit, the perfect length, and you have the perfect size, everything.
You can make it a big semi-auto barrel.
Yeah, you can make a big semi-auto barrel, but generally speaking, if your blaster is too overpowered, you're going to create a huge shotgun blast. Your blaster is too underpowered, you're not going to get your dart out the barrel. So,
or it's going to be a shit shot, like I tried to with those.
So,
all right, so
consistency is key.
Should we go back to our NIC experiences?
Oh boy.
All right, let's start off with the top of the chat. Start from Aeromech and go all the way down.
I'm not looking at, so you're not to read off stuff.
All right, so it's going to be Chris, then Will, then Dennis's few experience. Dennis talk about his experience, then Nick, then me, then Rob.
All right.
Oh no, experience like history or experience like...
Talk about like your favorite moments, maybe like your best war story, your best build, something that is generally really memorable or a good story about the NIC scene.
Oh boy. I just remember like it was I think my first APOC. I had so much fun that time. I had just made a couple of really good rainbows, and I'm just like, oh yeah, I'm just sprinting up to get Rob because he's hiding behind a tree, and I'm like, oh, I got him this time. I'm just sprinting. Boom, my hopper was out of ammo. That's just, and I think that was one of the good ones I got there. APOC's always great. I think that would be one of my favorite ones because as you go there more often, and just I think this is just in general with NIC, you get to meet more like-minded people like yourself and realize that, hey, we all have this kind of really kind of oddball out there mechanical hobby, but we all do different things. Like some of us work at hardware stores, some of us are engineers, some of us are artists, some of us are English majors, some of us are all this stuff, but we all kind of are united by that. And the more you go to these things, it's about meeting your friends as much as it is like going to the actual Nerf games. And so it creates a wonderful network of really cool people.
I think that, Will, it's your turn.
Okay. So my first war was DCNF. It was like kind of a rebooted DCNO. Like, what was that? Like 2011, I think. I was running around with a quad shot. Free Agent was still around, so it was like kind of a weird college group versus a bunch of really young teenagers. That was a lot of fun. I went to 2 of those, I believe, and then I kind of got back in last year with whatever Nino CTNO, I believe.
Yeah, CTNO.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun, even though none of my blasters worked. But so it goes. And then this past summer, I went to APOC, which was amazing. Ran around all day with a rainbow, saw other people's work. So that's about it.
Dennis, do you want to add anything to your experience, or?
I don't know, my NIC experience is pretty short. It's like that one CTNO and APOC. That's my NIC experience. But yeah, I've thoroughly enjoyed it. I think HVZ is still my favorite Nerf experience, but NIC is definitely my favorite Nerf war, where it's blaster versus blaster. NIC is the way to go.
I just want to quickly plug in, if you're in the Northeast or Connecticut, come to CTNO. It's on November 18th, I believe. We should link an event page.
Boy. Yeah, whatever that weekend is, that's when it is.
Nick, I think it's your...
Oh boy,
Nick, I think
okay.
It's your turn.
Let's see. I find myself now, whenever I go to an event, whether it be HUZ or NIC, I really just go there for the people, for my friends that I see a couple times a year. Because, after you Nerf for so long, you don't really have any interest in actually playing. You just want to dick around with your friends, and that's really where most of my memories have come from. I definitely find myself having the most fun at APOC, bouncing off of a lot of what people said already, because you have basically the whole entire community on the Northeast being centralized right there, and you can see and talk to everybody that shows up. You also have newcomers. I know that this past APOC, there was a kid that was 12 years old with his dad who came just because he wanted to try out the NIC scene, and he was blown away by everything that was there, and being able to run him through and teach him how to do certain things. It's definitely where I find a lot of my enjoyment nowadays. Favorite moment? It's really hard to pinpoint. Like I said, APOC is always great with moments. I like playing a lot with J Lego. Whenever we do Wingman, those are always really fun games. And I guess one moment is when one of my friends, Miguel, was starting a charge through one of the tunnels at APOC, and he was like, "Run forward, my children!
Run forward, my children!"
And so he started running through the tunnels, but it was one of those really wet APOCs where all the ground was, really slippery. So he got probably 10 feet into the charge down the tunnel, and then just slipped and fell on his ass.
I have that as a ringtone.
I think there's a video of that somewhere. We need to find that. I don't know, other moments. It's really hard to pinpoint.
Your favorite build?
Okay. So favorite
or building experience, start off.
So my favorite building experience was probably my first homemade, which I built with Austin, who's no longer in the scene. It was one of those things where he was over at my house, and we had all the supplies, and together we built a standard snap. It had a foregrip, and it was pull back. And it was one of those things where, up until that point, I was using primarily air blasters because they were cheap and easy. And, now that I had the Springer, everything was just oh my god, so much power in my hands. I guess there was that time that I tried to make a plus bow with a Dremel. that was a cancer fire. And then I guess my most favorite build was my most recent one, which was the plus bow designed to look aesthetically like a crossbow with aluminum plates and cast resin parts.
Nick, how much does that thing weigh?
I don't know, somewhere around 5 pounds. It's a lot.
Yeah.
It's excessive. But I also I really like heavy blasters. Like, they feel good in the hands.
So I guess this leads to my experiences. I have a lot of favorite war experiences. I think, like with everyone else, I do love hanging out with my friends in this hobby. I particularly love hanging out with like David and Rob. Shit, I have a fuck ton of good memories with pretty much everyone here. A lot. Like, I think like even like road trips to places are really fun because when you're with a group of friends, you can always keep talking about stuff. Like I think on the way down to like Philadelphia with.
Oh wait, Ben, I'm gonna interrupt you because I'm a huge douche. That just completely reminded me of that PA war that we all drove down to, and we all stayed at that hotel room. Chris, you remember this?
Snakes on the plains.
Yeah, and then
don't bring that up.
And then we played at that airsoft arena. That was like the most amazing event ever.
It was amazing.
It was so good.
That was great.
I have some pictures.
It was centralized. It was centralized enough where you had people from all over the place. Like I met Kane and Ryan McNumbers, and holy moly, that was like a religious experience for me.
Oh, it was so good. Great. Sorry, Van.
They are.
No, that's fine. If you guys have like anything, you feel free to jump in because I don't think Chris talked too much about his builds.
It was just the best event ever.
Yeah. Oh, man.
It was great. Everything hurt more in there, though. I don't know if it was because there was like no wind whatsoever, or it was just not humid. But to me, everything hurt more. It was like incentive to like not get hit.
So at least back to like, I also agree. APOC is fucking awesome. I haven't reached that burnout or point of old age that Nick has, where he's playing just to see his friends. No offense.
Ouch.
I think I adopted Rob's philosophy of you gotta go hard, man. And I think like my favorite moments are usually wingmanning with Rob, or again with J Lego, or anyone from LGLF that's basically anyone competent.
Looking at you, Langley.
I don't know, man. I don't know. I think I'd take Langley over you. No, I'm sorry, Nick. I love you.
And like, just to jump in for a moment, everybody here is talking about APOC. We mentioned it like 6 times, but like that, don't forget about the local wars, because like they're a lot more. They're smaller. Like you will get probably 10 to 15 people out there, but like it's a much more like intimate group. You really get to know guys there and like see everybody's like stuff, and that's where the really good bonds are formed as well. So absolutely go to the smaller ones too.
And don't forget about APOC. It's always the first Saturday in August in Ocean Township, New Jersey. Please come.
What's it been?
Now UltraStock rebranding to follow. Use your flywheels, guys. Use your Eclipse brand OFP flywheels.
All right, let's not talk about that yet, Van. We got to talk more about that in private.
All right. Also, I was gonna add on to like, I've had good experience at local wars. I've had good experiences with Rob fucking around in his house with fucking, you know, those Buzzbee shells, just trying to hit each other with ejecting shells. It's not. I think it's about the people that really make it fun. Yeah. Because if I go into wars without like people you really know or are friends with, kind of just starts to suck. I am sure there's people that you can be cool with, but like you make a close group of friends in the hobby. I think that's where a lot of my funness came from. I owe a lot of the experiences to Rob because he's brought me around and showed me lots of cool shit. Brought me to fucking Zeno's, let me stay over and stuff, and that leads to my modding experiences. I think my favorite one was in Zach's basement where we were putting a K18 with my K26 because fuck it, let's make my rainbow more powerful the night before, like a Nino. There was just so much dicking around because this is before I got really intimate and knew how homely. I knew how the gist of it worked. I never fully feels true my rainbow, and it just all clicked when I took it apart in Zach's basement that I fully understood how this rainbow worked. I had a general gist before that I was like, oh yeah, it catches back, and then you pull the trigger after it's forward. I somehow just got like a way more of an intimate feeling there, like adding another spring and adding a fuck ton of dumb shit onto my rainbow.
But it took him 40 minutes to figure out how to open it.
Well, see, this is the first time I opened the shit up. I from there, I just like started fucking with homemades even more. Like I got the balls to open up my ESLT because I was like, oh no, what if I fuck it up and open it? And I think that sort of philosophy is everyone's here. Yeah, the product they got.
Van really is hitting on a really good point here. I can't stress that enough. That if you want to understand how this works, a lot of it's intimidating. But if you can have a take apart a homemade blaster that somebody else has made and then put it back together, you're going to understand it so much better. I wouldn't have been able to build my plus bow or my double rainbows if I hadn't taken apart Chris's rainbow that he. Yeah, if I haven't done that with Chris's rainbow, taken it apart and rebuilt it, then I wouldn't have had a good enough understanding to build a double rainbow.
Yeah, and on that same, if I may interject, on that same note though, the principles in homemade blasters are almost always going to be easier than store-bought stuff, and that sounds crazy because once again it looks really intimidating, and PVC and cutting board and polycarbonate monstrosities, but you're building this at home on your bench, it can't be that complicated. So I say it's actually easier to build a homemade than it is doing heavy modifications on store-bought stuff.
I heavily agree with Chris.
Unless it's all kit-based stuff.
Kit-based.
Or a Cali or a long shot. It's just what is you have to do, for a long shot. Let's just say you don't go the kit route, right? In order to bring a long shot up to, even low homemade spec, it's every single moving part, you've got, reinforcements to the plunger rod, all this stuff. And it's you can go to a hardware store and order a spring and a seal online. And it's that's easily half the cost and probably half the effort.
Yeah, you don't have to work around somebody else's engineering. Everything is yours.
Yeah, and it's someone else's shitty engineering. Take what we want to do with it. So it's
a lot of red tape, supposed to be safe stuff. I wanted to add further. Air guns are really simple. They're a trigger. They're a valve and a hopper. And I think my favorite example of simplicity is I think there's 4 moving parts in a sear carbine: the sear itself, the trigger, the spring, and the bolt carrier, whatever plunger. Those are 4 moving parts, and 2 of them are captive. The trigger and the sear are locked inside the lower. We'll add in the write-up later. But homemades are, I think it's just a lot of the fear and stigma that which rightfully so has been gained by NerfHaven, the elitist. There, I think none of us are those sort of people. But
guys, I'm an elitist douchebag.
I am a little bit, just in the sense of somebody comes on. Yeah, somebody goes on, let's say NerfHaven is hey guys, how do I get this, or where do I do this? And the thing about NerfHaven is it's an excellent resource, but please just search for 5 or 10 minutes before you post a question. It's not a Facebook group. Yeah. So that's the only thing you have to worry about NerfHaven. Other than that, it's wonderful.
Leads me to missing the forums back in the day where you don't have these needs.
Shameless plug, if you want to learn how to make rainbow stuff, go to Aeromech's channel. He has plenty of write-ups.
Hey,
and
what up?
If you want to ask stupid questions, go to the NIC Zone on Facebook. That is the place to ask stupid questions in a Facebook group. NerfHaven is not the place to ask stupid questions. You will be eaten apart and ripped to shreds.
I also want to add, if Jay Lego or Phil's watching, Phil Langley, please fix the write-ups. I really don't want to put my write-ups on Google Docs because I can't upload photos to NerfHaven anymore. It's a great resource. I love NerfHaven, but it needs to get this shit worked out. Yeah, Rob, would you like to speak now?
Oh, okay. So basically, my first NIC war was APOC 2006. It was in Mill Creek, and there were only 16 people. Just to long. In
Rob, you're cutting in and out again.
God damn it.
Mill Creek APOC.
Yeah, just start over.
Okay, so my first NIC war was APOC 2006 in Mill Creek, and it only had 16 players, which shows you how far that war's come along. In 2007, 2009, there were 80 players or more, and it was just filled the field. Then there were some wars in Pennsylvania and this abandoned mill where we had these 3 long hallways in the dark shooting, hearing darts bounce off walls and things like that. It was crazy.
Are you talking about Linfield?
No, that's not Linfield. That's That was
Rob?
2008. But my favorite experience ever. I hope I don't cut out for this. It was at the University of Maryland in College Park, and they had this indoor war with like 40 people in their science something building, and there were we were doing capture the flag with 2 bases. We didn't know where the base was. We had NIC blasters, and we took them into this big freight elevator. And we rode the freight elevator up to the 2nd floor, got out, and the doors opened, and it was the middle of their base. And we just lit them up until we were empty. And we all got shot, but it was amazing.
But, like, nobody recognized that you were ever there.
No, they have no idea we were coming.
No, like, afterwards, like, wasn't there, like, a team created based off of that elevator?
Oh, yeah, so that APOC later, there was a team freight elevator, and they forgot I was there, so that I didn't get put on it. I'm still salty to this day.
Oh, man. Man, you're on AMR and UNC. All right. What about your favorite building experience, Rob?
My favorite building experience? Probably when I made a... what do you mean by building? Like building blasters or building, like, abandoned buildings?
Building. No abandoned building.
Building. Probably when I made a big blast and a raider in 6 hours right before work because I had to have it, and I didn't have time, so I just like made cancer clouds really quickly, threw the thing together, and it worked perfectly.
Rob, you're not going to talk about you building a 4BR in the car on the way to APOC?
Because that one didn't work. It started to break immediately.
Modding a Sentinel on the way to fucking Philadelphia.
Although, yeah, I did finish a 4BR in the car with a power inverter and a hot glue gun.
That was fun to witness. Also, sorry about the cars, Dennis. That'll be fun to edit out.
Zip ties. This is gonna be a fucking pain in the ass for him to edit. There's so many things to like add in. Like, look at the list I put in of stuff we need to have pictures of. Does anyone else have any experiences they want to add? I have one more I wanted to add into. But if anyone else wants to add like any build experiences or any war stories, any general NIC experiences.
You go first.
There was the first, I think it was, it was the first APOC that I went to, where I ended up deciding that my first, like, real homemade blaster that I made by myself would be a 211, which is a huge no-no. Don't ever build a 211. It is a crappy version of a plus bow, and so basically, because it has a larger air volume, it's harder to, deliver all that air at the same rate that like a standard size plunger tube would. So if you just have a K26 spring in there, it's going to have horrible performance. So Corey recommended to me, which is another NIC player, to put in a bigger spring, and so I did. So this APOC, I ran around with a 211 with like a spring that's like 2 times a K26 and like a single barrel, and so I would basically have to like brace the blaster between my legs and then push down with everything I had for like this 5 inches of draw, and then like get standard performance. So that was fun. Don't ever build a
crossbow.
Yeah, don't ever build a 211. Don't recommend.
Yeah. On that note, crazy builds. This was recent. This was last APOC. I remember it was like, I don't know if it was midnight or like 1 o'clock in the morning, but Van, you remember Callie broke her arm, right?
Oh my god, the one arm blaster.
Holy moly. Yeah, and so the one arm blaster that I made, it was like midnight or 1 in the morning, and I had just like finished doing something else for the game, and I had like, I don't know, I don't recommend this at all. I had like a few drinks because I expected to go to bed, right? And so and so instead it's like, well, she needs a blaster because there's nothing that she could use. So like, I think I scrapped together like my original sear carbine, like the mechanisms off of like the rocket launcher thing, and just scrapped something together in like and just scrapped something together in like 2 hours, and it actually worked. It was just it was a one-arm pump action blaster that just was so redneck and so janky, but it worked. So
that was amazing. Link in the description to Aeromech's channel. Please check it out. It's amazing.
Yo, speaking of which, I got fucking I have a YouTube now.
No, I also want to talk about it. Don't put it in the description.
Wow, rip. I have like I'm plugging in Nick's channel too. I want to talk about my first experience. I guess this kind of brings us into changes in NIC. The first I kind of want to rag on this new UltraStock thing because it's just rebranded DIY.
Yep.
Literally, you've been able to take a SuperStock blaster any war you want, and it worked. Again, I had a I ran into my first APOC with a bolt action retaliator. That's like 100 FPS, and I think it was okay. I was like barely coming up even, but it's more of a you just need cover and stuff. So that kind of leads us into what are the biggest changes in the NIC you've seen since you started. So you guys want to start on the top of the list, Chris?
I guess so. Since I've started, I've definitely seen, like with APOC and with even in the smaller wars, really, you see more of the SuperStock being brought with the players and being competitive. And I think it was actually Langley that also kind of pointed this out too. But at nowadays, you could have a 250 FPS, let's say Rainbow or something like that. But if you have a Rapid Strike that can get 150 FPS to
Phil.
Yeah, if you can have a Rapid Strike and get 150 FPS, but has a rate of fire of like, I don't know, 10 to 12 darts per second, that is essentially just like a dart hose. So even if you outrange it, it's different play styles, but it is actually competitive. So depending on how you play, flywheels at their very, very top end can kind of sort of, have a place in NIC wars. So it's adapted in that basically things you could buy off the shelf and then mod and then mod and then mod and then mod have actually gotten competitive. Now how much money and how much time you're willing to put into that is absolutely a factor, because you can't just go get a stock retaliator and go. But
I mean, you could,
flywheels, you could, but like the flywheel scene really has improved a lot, just because I think the market is so expansive now. You can choose exactly what motors, what flywheels, what wires you want to put in there and have something that's completely custom to you.
You could also go stupid cheap. I know the last APOC, somebody showed up with a 5-foot long blowpipe and was competitive. So
he didn't call his hits. Oh, speaking of which, Rival's not bad for this either. I think there's a guy with Chaos. That's fine.
And he realized it was bad, and then I loaned him my 4B.
Oh, whoops. Well, again, these, I think a lot of people are afraid of the stigma, and I'm sorry to cut off you, Will, but it's a lot of the stigma that's around DIY stuff that it's not bad to get into.
Yeah,
it's really not that hard. I joined as a kid. I made a homemade blaster with a Dremel and a drill. That's it. Will, would you like to?
Stock. I mean, so you have the old school, NIC scene, right? NIC NH scene, and homemades are inseparable, and that's what it's known for. But I mean, you had plenty of people using modified blasters, big blasts,
4B,
4Bs, even stuff like max shots, long shots, maximizers, you name it. And so, that's traditionally been, NIC, so that's fine. But you have this UltraStock concept, which I think is really inseparable from flywheels that we've seen over the past, 2 years, really. And more like a year. I mean, you got Phil stuff and his 3D printed Rapid Strike, dual stage Rapid Strike. That's 200 FPS? Very much NIC competitive.
Yeah.
And so that's what UltraStock is. It's this proliferation of flywheels. And the the Singaporean long shot scene. I mean, is that super UltraStock, or is that?
It's its own thing.
I mean,
really
but
they're their own category.
Commonalities.
They're competitive for both.
Yeah, and so I think you really have to consider that UltraStock is really an influence of flywheels. This upper FPS territory.
DIY scene, just rebranded DIY. That's what I think it is. It's rebranded.
Yeah. I mean, there's nothing wrong with that though. So I guess we can mention this. This is nothing official just yet. but I was kicking around the possibility of essentially rebranding APOC now that I'm in charge of it as UltraStock, which for all intents and purposes will play out exactly the same, but hopefully convinces some people in the SuperStock scene to come out, and so there can be more of a balance between like high rate of fire but not as powerful blasters and like the NIC homemade blasters, so which you can reach out to farther distances, but doesn't have that rate of fire. And this is really just, I feel like UltraStock, while it's essentially NIC at its heart with like more SuperStock people showing up, it's definitely the direction that Nerf should go, and it would be the way to save the NIC scene. Otherwise, it'll just continue to die out.
I don't think it's dying out. It's more of that it's being overshadowed.
It is.
All right.
The whole scene is kind of morphing.
Yeah.
It's just gonna mix. As long as I can use my rainbow, man.
So basically, the way I see it is, the other scenes like HUZ and SuperStock, they've all adapted to as the community has grown, but the NIC scene really hasn't had that adaptive period. It's all just been the same stuff and people being stuck in their ways, like it must be this way. So it really kind of was shut out to growth, and then people just continued with all the stuff that was easy to access with kits and that they could play within more areas. So I feel like the continuation of NIC really just has to be it adapting to 2017 Nerf and being understanding of the amount of SuperStock players that want to play SuperStock and turning into UltraStock.
I miss my quick short.
I mean, that's just marketing more than anything else.
Yeah,
I say that, and then there's going to be those couple old school, old school people that are going to be listening to this podcast and just cringing. But if we end up rebranding APOC to UltraStock, that is definitely going to be really beneficial, and nothing changes. You don't have to change how you play. You can play exactly the same and just wreck people.
It's more people to shoot. I just want more people to shoot, man.
Right. I mean, I think Rob hit on this before, but there was APOC at its prime, having 80 plus people show up, and now we get consistently around 50 people. So it's definitely dropped off in recent years, and a lot of it's just the returning players. We don't really have very many new players showing up. All the new players that we've seen are just people that I've dragged in from the HVZ scene. So
hey,
like Dennis.
Even now.
At Dennis.
Let Rob talk. He hasn't said anything.
Oh yeah, go Rob.
Yeah.
So basically, along with those concerns, also the technology has really changed within NIC itself too. So I started it with all fixed single barrels and speed loaders, with basically whatever you could mod, because any primary was really competitive. And now there's hoppers and homemades. Homemades were not a thing when I started. Mm-hmm. We all used mainly springers and air blasters. We didn't do any homemades, and now they're kind of everywhere. What?
Would you like to talk about the original screw darts and how originally SuperStock and DIY were the same thing?
So basically, SuperStock didn't exist. There was just stock, and it kind of sucked. So we used homemade darts, which Stefan Mower invented, where you got a roll of FBR. Into it, usually a fishing weight or a screw or something like that, and then put hot glue on top, made a dome out of it. And you'd make hundreds of those before each war, and that's what we used. And
oh my god!
Fast forward
to
today.
Your different size darts.
I mean, they're usually what?
What hurts more, an old hot glue dome or an FEJ?
That's what you shoot it out of. If you shoot an FEJ out of 4B, it will hurt like a bitch. But a dome overall from more blasters hurts a lot more. That's more like a paintball.
That's just because it weighs more. That's just because it has metal.
Yeah, and it has hot glue as a face, which is really hard.
Also, I feel like okay, so Rob hit on this a little bit, but goddamn, I hate making darts. I feel like that's just something that everybody thinks they hate making darts, and that's also a boundary to get into the NIC scene if you want to make competitive blasters. You're gonna need short half-length darts.
For hopper fed.
For hopper fed. But now that there's the introduction of the, what are they called, Van?
The orange ones?
Slugs,
the sweet orange?
SCS, I'll put in the write-up.
The SCS, we'll put up a write-up and a video on them. But basically they're a way to make cheap darts that take like 1/3 the time that making standard slugs take, because you can't use like standard half-length darts like the worker ones or like the faux berries, or I don't know what types.
They all have like a rubberish head, and they
Right,
don't hop very well. You can put them in a Brit hop, but no, Brit hops we don't trust too much because they end up exploding everywhere.
Right, so basically you're going to need something with a flat head and a felt pad on top of it to be able to hopper through blasters, and this is recent advancement that definitely makes the whole entire like prospect of making darts a lot better.
Yeah, I mean, they fly straight every time. They can survive obscene wear and tear. I mean, they're just all around good darts.
And if they're not quite heavy enough, drench them in water. The felt pad will absorb all the water, and then they'll become a little bit heavier.
Oh God, that was so.
Oh, okay.
That's ridiculous. It looks like it's like smoking when you shoot it.
It does look cool. You look really photogenic, APOC.
It was great.
We're interrupting Rob, I think.
I'm sorry, but we need to rewind. We need to rewind a little bit. Another favorite moment was this past APOC, where there was Richie or Craftsman. I was engaging him, and I shot him accidentally in the glasses, and because I was using these SCSs with, like, the felt pads were soaked with water, it hit his glasses and went all over his glasses. He was like, oh, what the hell? What is this? I was trying to, like, wipe off his glasses, but there was just water everywhere.
Oh, baby, it's all wet.
Your barrels must be superbly clean, then.
You can clean your barrels with like a shotgun cleaner. I use like I got it from Walmart. It's like a shotgun cleaning kit to clean out your barrels so you get all that gunk out.
Anyway, sorry, Rob, continue.
No, definitely keep promoting SCS. I invented them. I'm very biased. You should switch to them.
Wow, I see how it is.
I'm under the impression that they're like definitely the easiest to make and damn extension of specific limiter. They'll heard those two things. Like if you use CPVC, shout out to Van.
Angry. Use aluminum. I have 509 aluminum. Best barrel. 509 is the inner diameter. Anyway, do we keep interrupting Rob, or have I been cutting out? Really?
No, it's fine.
Just go, Rob. Come on. You've been here the longest. You've seen the most change. Talk about how like you used to have 600 FPS NeoGat guns and then transition to homemades.
I mean, yeah, there were no rules for that in the beginning, so I have been shot with like 600 FPS singled like air guns that are bigger than 4Bs, like Titans and Net Geo guns and rotor rockets and shit. But now we like to be safe and use eye protection, use FPS limits, use things that aren't flat.
Sorry, I dropped back. Sorry.
So we're definitely safer these days than in the past. And also just we have those all these third-party companies and stuff that are making parts that we didn't have in the past, so because we didn't have that. And that also helps make the hobby more accessible. About a homemade or intimidated by a homemade.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you could buy a DIY grade blaster now for really cheap. Again, caliber and really easy.
He sells those things for literally dirt cheap. Like, if you were to break down the cost of building all those things, even with all the benefits he has and like means production he has, it is not profitable for him to build those things. Like, he is doing it just so he can like kill Superstock.
He's trying to kill flywheels. Whoops! Plug in the Eclipse again.
That's
I want to add
the
that
level
you
of
could
bitterness I hope to achieve in my life. I
have my issues with the caliber, but I wanted to add on, like, yeah, you could buy an Exus. The XBT Retaliator, the fucking Prophecy with the expanded plunge, dude, you could get that.
Cool.
Honestly,
except it's fucking garbage.
Anything high rate of fire, you could compete with in war as long as it has cover. Again, I've used the 100 FPS bolt action Retaliator. It's about the same rate of fire as a pump action, but because I had like exchangeable mags and could keep a sustained rate of fire down, it was competitive. I think you could bring in like your HVZ stripes and still be competitive as long as there's cover, and you have to. Oh man, I don't want to sound like an elitist, but you have to get good. But it's not that hard to jump into with I think
Yeah.
people jump in, like again, stock stuff.
If Van can show up with the fucking pump action retaliator,
It was bolt action.
Okay, bolt action retaliator, whatever, and then like actually hit people and compete just by playing the cover right, then you can too, because Van's bad.
Wow. Okay, Nick. I see. Yeah.
Beat you every time.
Oh, yeah.
Remember that one
And
time
to
that I shot
clarify-
you from like 130 feet away? Just pop
Remember
shot
all
style?
the times I wiped your team at APOC?
Nope, I don't remember this.
Oh, I have clips of this on my channel. I'm gonna
Nope.
plug in my channel.
Don't exist.
There's video evidence
Fake
of it
news.
now.
I
Fake
just,
news. Is it fake news?
on that note, I really don't care about performing well anymore. I just stick around.
Oh, the best is when Nick was like at APOC, like sneaking through the woods, and the triangle just hopping up.
Oh yeah.
Yes. Can you? I know Sam has that, but can you
I
like
have that,
send
yeah.
that? Okay, send that clip to Dennis so you can like overlay that
Yeah,
into the
I'm
video.
putting a list of
Yep.
stuff down right now.
I'm putting
of stuff we
Van.
need.
I'm gonna have to edit so much of this audio. I'm putting Van in charge of collecting all the images and videos and crap.
Sounds good.
Yeah, I have the list down. I'll do the research for the photos. I know where these things pull them up, but
Yeah.
put them in that Google Doc we have. So, that kind of leads into the next question.
How
What
many
has been a
questions
big
do we have
influence?
left?
Huh?
How many
We have
questions?
like four more
Okay,
questions.
we have
Oh,
four
shit.
more questions, but we've touched on all of them while answering the first two. So, like, we
Solid.
don't really have
Oh yeah,
four more
we kind of
questions.
did.
I'm gonna have
Alright,
to go
who-
soon. So
Who has? All right, fuck you, Nick. Who has been a big influence on you or the NIC community, in your opinion?
That's the only question that, like, we haven't even touched yet. Everything else we've
Okay.
a little bit touched through answering other questions.
We haven't gone
Okay.
in depth with them though.
I'm gonna go first on this one, and then I'm gonna dip out because I have to go run a war. So
I love you, Nick.
Nice priorities in order.
I see how it is. You leaving us, Nick?
casually showing up an hour late. So I guess definitely some big influencers. Like early on, I really liked UIN 13 shit. That's just because like I was an ignorant 8-year-old and thought his work was good. But you know, times have changed. He really got me into it. However, like recent inspiration, I always have to plug J Lego's stuff because he makes the most beautiful plus bows ever. And my goal is always like I aspire to like reach his level of like build for building homemade blasters. However, because I'm not like machining everything out on a CNC like he is, I'm never going to obtain that. So that's always something that I like reach to and try and like achieve his build quality. And you know, that's definitely something that drives me and pushes me forward when building homemade blasters. So I don't know. Those are my two names.
All right.
I'm gonna go now. Thanks for having me.
I love you, Nick.
I'll listen to the rest of this later, and I'll send all the information that I can. So
Put it in the Google Doc. Just your
Yep.
work in particular. I'll organize it. All right.
Okay,
So,
I'll do it.
Chris,
All right, see you guys later. Bye.
who has been a big
Bye.
influence on you or the NIC community? I guess we could bring that to like sites. I think the site would really fulfill this question.
What, you mean NerfHaven, the site?
Oh yeah. Oh, we'll talk about that, Chris. Talk about your experience.
Oh my gosh. Okay, yeah. Well, in terms of that, I think one of my biggest influences obviously would be NerfHaven. That's where I started, and I got the original like rainbow write-up. Built my first rainbow from there, and after like the second one, I didn't even need to use that. I just kind of had everything memorized in my head. So Ryan McNumbers definitely would have been one of my early influences, absolutely. And I would not be where I am right now if I had not followed that first rainbow tutorial. And more recently, like the PCSR would not exist if the ESLT did not exist. That's absolutely a thing. Everyone says that I kind of like trashed it a little bit, and I'm like, it has its merits. I just went to a different design goal than what they had. So yeah, go ahead.
I was gonna say it's a similar concept executed differently, but I think that your design is far superior. I have both. I have the original prototype that was broken, fixed it, and it's superior to the ESLT.
It's like, it's a completely different, outside or internals, but it looks similar, but the inside is completely different. So it's like what you said. It was executed completely differently. That was done by literally. I was like, okay, let me make. This is just when I got my 3D printer. It was like, let's make an upgrade kit for the ESLT because everybody has these, and I got the solid model files from Ryan McNumbers because he once again made them public, which is excellent for the advancement of the hobby. And I just started deleting things and deleting and deleting and deleting. And when I was the things I was dissatisfied with, and at the end I was literally left with only the redirect mechanism. Literally everything else was deleted from the file, and I was like, well, let me just design this from there. And that's how that came to be. So Ryan McNumbers absolutely is an influence. Yeah, and just as much as I keep going back to this, like the people that I see at these wars. So like you said, like Jay Lego, like Langley, like Corey. So like a lot of these other inventors and tinkerers. Yeah, Gears too.
I miss Gears.
Corey, I would say, because he had the double rainbow, and I kind of made my own version of that as well. So really a lot of the big name like builders for me. So Ryan McNumbers, Corey, LGLF, I would say would be definitely a lot of my influences.
All right, Will, would you like to speak on who has influenced you? I guess NerfHaven influenced all of us, but
Yeah. So really talking about Nerf for me would really incomplete without NerfHaven. I mean, the website has its flaws, which I very much recognize. Point. Yeah, and so the whole point of NerfHaven for me isn't like the moderators or I was just out of the hobby for so long. It really has to do with the culture of building rather than kit work. Modification over drop-in, which I think is something that it hasn't been lost, but like it has been kind of overwhelmed. But that's kind of a different topic. Anyway, and then you also have the inherent nature of open source Haven forums. Like pretty much everything was open source, templates, STL files, whatever, which is something that
nobody tried to make money, or unless there was a commission.
Yeah, I mean, people were making money from commissions or whatever, but not. I'm going to design this 3D printed part, and I'm going to sell it. Sell kits for these parts, which is fine. I understand that the need to make money, but also that sucks for a lot of people. So thing that still followed today with Aeromech files, with Captain Slug's files, the
original Rainbow being open source.
everything is open source. Yeah. Everything is open source.
Christ. Thankfully,
it's all there.
Thankfully, we have Phil to bring the open source part to Flywheels. Plus, hail OFP Phil.
Yeah, I mean, it's filtered over into SuperStock. You've had, various 3D printed file cages and, metal file cages. Of course, the metal's a little bit different, but, various 3D printed file cages that have, gone around. And then Phil came along, of course, made it better than everyone else. And I think really changed. And he's changed the game in regards to. He's changed the game in regards to SuperStock, and now he's moving into the 200 mark territory with his new wheels and stuff, and it's just like, what the hell? And that's not to say that NerfHaven is the only redoubt of open source. I mean, FDL is open source. Very, very few people make FDLs because they're just really, really difficult. But
anyway. I want to add on to that as like, you can keep going.
Okay, so and as for who's influenced my work, such as it is, I really admire Slug, Ryan McNumbers, Zorn, especially. I think Zorn is very much undercredited for the weird contraptions he's built.
Definitely.
Like, you could argue that the Drev style homemades, Aeromech, you know what I'm talking about.
Oh yeah, the Drev pups. I made one of those. They're sweet. I love those things.
That is very much derived from Zorn's work. It's a reversal of the foul tune mechanism.
I completely forgot about that. The fallopian
I know,
series of stuff.
The fouls are sweet. Like, you could argue that the foul 3 is like to the Caliburn precursor, or kind of arose out of the same vein as the Rev Shot. I mean, like, he's very undercredited for the stuff that he's done. But anyway, that's beside the point. And of course, and not to sound like a circle jerk, but Aeromech, I really admire your work. CTNO last year, you like found my rainbow on the ground, my double rainbow on the ground, and like started taking it apart.
Wait, which war was that?
It was CTNO last year when I came up, and you found my mega double rainbow on the ground, and we're like, "How the fuck does this work?"
Oh yeah! Oh wow! Yeah, yeah, that was really awesome.
You got your screwdriver and you were taking it apart. And I'm just like, okay.
Okay,
randomly disassembling your blaster. This man.
I'm sorry. Was that consensual?
And you gave me a lot of tips on how to make another easily disassembly rainbow at APOC, which I really appreciated, which I'm working on. 3D printing along the lines of Caliburn and the PCSR, like homemade Nerf. We need more designs like that. We need easily accessible 3D printed parts.
Yeah, the advantage of that is you could just snap them together, basically.
Yeah, the PCSR, you could print it all out and just assemble it. You need to make like a few cuts. I think, again, you only need a Dremel for that. Well, Dremel, drill, and some balls. I know it's like, there's some parts you need for McMaster car, and it's kind of weird to fuck with it because it's homemade and you're not exactly sure it'll work out, but I encourage anyone...
Talk about the resurgence of homemades, resurgence of high velocity Nerf in regards to springers, like printed parts, especially for homemades. I mean, that needs to happen, and I think that the PCSR is an achievement. It's like the baseline for that, and it's a great blaster. And we just need more of them, and we need people using them.
I want to say the Sear Carbine. Chris, where are the files for that? We just need the 3D printed lower, and the Sear Carbine I can build in probably an hour. I think that's even simpler. You have, again, 4 moving parts.
Yeah, I'll get on that one of these days. Again, I just moved. Background in my life, I just moved and started a new job, so everything is kind of slowly settling back down. So you'll see me more and more as that happens.
Bring more videos. Okay, well, Dennis, would you like to talk about any changes you've seen in the short time you've been here? Oh, actually, no. We're talking about influences, right?
Why do I hear Mr. Softy in the background? Who has Mr. Softy in the background?
Whoops. Okay, Dennis, would you like to talk about what has been a big influence on you, or things that you think have been an influence on the scene in the limited time you've been here?
Literally all of them are right here in this podcast, or were here because Nick left. But yeah, like watching Aeromech's videos, watching Nick's videos, and just like playing with both of their builds. I'm definitely building my own homemade rainbow or something similar before next APOC. Probably going to be using an Aeromech tutorial for that. Definitely getting an Aeromech or Nickrarri commission between now and then too. That way, in case I horribly fuck up my own rainbow, I'll have something functioning.
If you fuck up your rainbow, I'll help you fix it. And Sear Carbines are easy as fuck, dude. You have anything else you want to add on to that?
No, that's it for me.
Alright, let's go suck Aeromech's dick some more. I think Aeromech has been a major influence for me.
Oh my god.
Yeah, your videos in general have been so informative. Everyone who is watching is not subscribed to Aeromech. I know he doesn't post often. Subscribe. Quality content. Just watch all of his shit. Even his old shit, like the fucking anti-aircraft stampede that the stampedes you've reworked into everything.
I love the dumb stuff too. I do.
Those are amazing. Like everyone else. Huh?
Wait, one second. Sorry, hold up. Where's this damn tab? Okay, sorry, continue.
Okay, so NerfHaven has also been a major influence for me because that's where I've seen. Is this the reason I hate Drac more? Drac and Coop have been an influence for me to get the hobby and interest in general.
when I've been in the hobby, Rob has been a major influence for like my philosophy, my playstyle, and like how I generally like the hobby. I think again, it's also people that I've hung out with that influence. Again, Rob's like point of view and approach to things, I think, have been a bit of an influence, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. Me being a dick comes from me myself, not him. But the like philosophy of practicality over aesthetics, or like for building in general, has come from like Chris, where it's simplicity first and easy to make things. Like I think I've adapted a lot of easy homemade stuff to, or some like techniques and methods for certain things to just like even for regular building, like bending. I know I didn't find out about bending polycarb until I watched just Chris's video, and I used that for robotics. I forgot to add earlier, about everything being open source. I think that in general is what the hobby needs to move on, and as long as there are people that are willing to be kind, share their, have the hobby's best interest in the mind rather than profit. I mean, to be fair, I think now you do need to profit to move forward, but the fact that so many things have been open source, easy to get into, and not have to be purchased has made this hobby progress technological wise. Because I don't see that you have to innovate too much if you're just selling the same product. I could be wrong. I'm not a business major. I guess it kind of leads to me talking that people in the hobby are nice. I know that there's tons of fucking drama here, and even though I seem like a dick, I kind of am. I think like there's a ton of kindness. Yeah, whoops. There's a ton of kindness in this hobby. Like Chris has brought me tours so many times, and I can't thank him enough for that. So has Dennis, so has Rob. I've got driven places, and that's the only way I've ever progressed this far. Or Chris just giving me a PCSR so I could fuck with and learn shit. A lot of, I think the kindness. I'm not sure. I haven't really fucked with the SuperStock community too much. A lot of kind people I've met in the hobby are in the DIY scene. I mean, everyone thinks it's so elitist, and I can see where it comes from, and it's not undeserved. I understand parts of it, but I've gotten so much free stuff, learned a lot of things, made so many memories due to the people here, due to the kindness of people's hearts, gotten a lot of free stuff that helped me learn stuff like Rainbow was technically bought by my friend. Just tons of stuff in general. I think like getting to know people that are in the hobby just really helps you out, because you have like people will just give you old stuff that you can work on or learn. Like I don't know, we talked about the sear carbine a bit and like making it a it was based kind of off the snap carbine, how much it sucked, and I was fucking with that when I had it from Zach. If you want to talk about that, Chris.
Oh, what, the sear carbine, or
originally like this? Yeah, like originally it was a snap carbine, and like you're taking out the bolt.
It's basically with the sear carbine, I was like, how can I make a blaster that's you can make almost exclusively from the hardware store? And so I just looked around and found who made the original snap carbine. Was it Sergeant Mick? I don't remember who it was, but it was like ages ago.
I thought Zach made the original snap carbine. That's where I got it from.
No, it was originally made with a long shot plunger tube, or the long shot plunger that was stuffed into 1-inch PVC. I think it was Sergeant Mick. I think his channel's defunct now, but that was another one that's ancient. But yeah, so I looked around, I saw that, and I was like, well, how can we make this work? And I saw the ESLT used a sear mechanism, and I mean like real steel, like firearms use that. So I was like, okay, it's reliable, it's robust, and so I just, chopped something up and made it work.
I'd like to mention, if no one else is talking, I'd also like to mention Spectre or Liam in Australia. I think his work he's been everywhere at once, and I think he's done a lot to further high velocity. Granted, a lot of HPA, but he's done a lot to further nerf in ways that I think are really cool, and that the American NIC high velocity crowd could learn from.
Who?
Vector?
Davis.
Oh yeah.
And he's kind of dabbled in everything, and I guess we kind of moved on from this, but he's kind of dabbled in everything. He's made homemades, he's made flywheels, his crazy HPA stuff, high velocity springers, mods, you name it, he's done it, and I think that's really something to be commended.
Can you say his name one more time? I didn't hear. I have to put on the list.
Liam Davis.
Oh, all right. Rob, would you like to talk about what do you think has influenced the hobby? What has influenced you? People, place, site, thing.
Sure. Okay, so basically, homemades are a big part of it. And again, when I started, there were no homemades at all. So definitely another +1 for Ryan McNumbers and his write-ups that are still probably some of the best out there. +1 to Corey and Kyle Gears. +1 to Chris for right now. His videos are probably some of the best out there now in terms of instructional value for actually building your first homemade. Daniel Beaver was doing stuff back in the day. Forsaken Angel was one of my first influencers for modding regular springers. And really pushing the boundaries of what you could get out of a springer. And then, like, I think Zach the Mac is underrated for this airgun contraptions he makes. Like, he'll come to wars and show me like these things. It's just a thing. There's like a tank here and a tank here and a tank here and a pump here and a pump here and tanks and pumps hanging out everywhere. It's incredible.
A scepter with the Dr. Pepper bottle.
Yeah, that too.
Is Arduino RS.
But that's a thing. And then I definitely want to name drop Philip again for what he's done for SuperStock and OFP and all this open source stuff. And I'm really excited for what he's coming out in the near future. Wink, wink.
All hail OFP Phil.
Hey.
Put a sponsor in there again.
And to build off of that, Rob, was it the Rainbow that came first, or was it the Snap with Carbon that came first? Because I don't want to leave him out because he had some cool stuff as well.
I'm not sure. I want to say the Snap Carbon.
Wait.
I think
Rainbow
sure.
much later.
Yeah.
The original Snap came out first. The Rainbow came out as an improvement of the design to take like a regular catch system and implement it because the original Snaps were kind of finicky.
Yeah, the catch on the Snap sucks. Like, it's really difficult to make a Snap catch.
The Sear carbons are amazing.
You got to get the nail the right length, and you got to shape the ramp like the right ways. Kind of.
But they have their place in the history, so I don't want to forget that completely. That was a huge legacy effort for the homemade scene.
Cough, cough. The people that disregard the DIY scene in general.
And Snaps went through a lot of different variations too before they got to where they did.
I thought the question was plus bow or Snap, which came first.
I think the plus bow came first.
Yeah.
And then the Snap because it was easier to make because not everyone had access to the parts needed to make a plus bow.
Plus bows, you needed to machine them, and you had to buy parts from McMaster.
You needed polycarb sheets. You needed Delrin rods, nylon rods.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
aluminum parts. All right, so. Is that... Alright, that's kind of done with influence. I guess this is kind of a general thing that we should all speak out on because it's not really in order. Do you think the NIC is dying? Or is it just becoming more of a niche? And we touched on this before, but... Would you guys like to speak on it?
I think it's definitely way down from what it used to be in the mid-2000s, but there's still a lot of players who are interested, and it could fuse a lot with the ultra stock scene and basically keep going. We just have to keep evolving and changing as trends change.
I would like to add on to that. I know that people like Dennis recently have just joined the hobby and they find it interesting, want to join in. The appeal of not having to be high rate of fire spam to be competitive and 300 FPS scaling gives room for other things to be competitive than just your flywheel and regular super stock scenes. I don't think I can see that the hobby is not booming as SuperStock and HVZR because those are kind of mixed, and there aren't really there are companies kind of making stuff for DIY. Again, I think a Singapore long shot would do totally fine here. That would be very competitive, and you've been able to do those things for a while. There's certain aftermarket companies that are very expensive. I think that I forgot who said it exactly, but the growth of NIC is still moving on. The PCSR came out recently. Sear Carbine was very recent. SCS is recent development. It's just
Caliburn
not moving.
Too.
Caliburn, yeah. it's just not moving as fast as the other scenes, and that's understandable. There's less people on it, less people interested, and everyone's intimidated by it. But I see when it's definitely moving in and fusing the ultra stock scene together. When just basically we ran a DIY, the whole hobby comes back together and remerges to be high velocity. I think it'll be like high velocity games, low velocity games, but
and there'll be more variety too, which will be great because NIC is really just air guns and springers, and if you have fly whales that can compete, suddenly you've got a whole different game.
Yeah, like
it's not as game.
It's not as easy for me to push up and just like spam springer because like now you have to like watch out for anyone that might be hiding with their RS. They might not be able to take your pot shot, but they'll hold off like a push.
Fly whales are godly when they're pushing. Like
yeah,
the rate of fire just overwhelms you.
Sizemore. My rainbow rate of fire.
So, in regard to the question of whether... Okay, so was the question NIC, or was it high velocity is dying?
Is NIC dying? Is it becoming more of a niche or growing? Kind of NIC, kind of high velocity.
Okay, so it depends on how you define NIC. So, like, the, NerfHaven... homemades, that type of thing, I'd say it's declining. Yes. That said, there's a lot of reasons why that is. Like, people aren't going to NerfHaven to find stuff anymore. They're going to YouTube. They're going to Reddit. They're going to to some extent Facebook, platforms. Like platforms, and they don't have information long term that people can access, which is a huge mistake. But at the same time, that's where everyone is. That's where all the innovation is. And so it's just, a positive feedback loop of... But in regard to like high velocity, high velocity nerf, I think it's growing. 3 or 4 different companies coming out with like long shot breach kits that get, 200 FPS, 220 FPS, in that type of thing. Specifically in regards to just long shots, you've got Slug producing hundreds of cal burns, which shows that people are very much interested in those. In that regard, high velocity is growing. I think there's a huge untapped potential there that like people really want to do that. But at the same time, you have with NIC, NerfHaven, high velocity wars. Or later, there's gonna be a bridge, and but in terms of NIC
Chris,
population,
would you like to speak on the future of the hobby, or how you think whether a niche dying or growing?
I can. I mean, I got into the homemade scene specifically in like 2000. What was it, 13 or 14? I remember off the top of my head. So my first APOC, I think I've only been to 3 at this point, 3 or 4. I think it's 3. But from just that, I noticed there's more of the store-bought and then modified stuff. So I think I kind of have to agree with Rob. I think it was that we're just kind of merging together a little bit. And now it's not weird to play next to somebody that has a Strife or a Rapid Strike that's just been modded to its absolute like racing horse potential. So it presents a new thing. So it presents a new aspect to the hobby. So I think that's the direction we're heading. I think everything's just kind of we're going full circle where we started. Modifying things really, really crazy, and then homemades came, and now we're modifying things really crazy again.
I can see the. I want to add that I can see like the current style of play, low rate of fire only, where or me or Jay Lego have the highest rate of fire spamming, is becoming more of a niche style. But like the current thing that we have right now that may become a niche. I still certainly love it. I do like low rate of fire, but in general, I don't think the scene at all is going to die. It's just going to need to adapt. And that's what you'd like to add on?
I'm excited to see where it goes with all the like the gap bridging basically that Phil and Slugs is doing. Basically, we're I really like where the whole like everything's combining together. I know that personally, like I'll use flywheels for every HVZ event I go to, but there's just something about using a rainbow or a double rainbow like that pump action at NIC Wars that I just really like. So I'll probably keep doing that at those wars, but I like that there's options for everyone. Where Phil, who refuses to use anything pump action, can now go to an NIC war and use whatever his most recent flywheel monstrosity is.
To be fair, he's been able to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
There has never been a rule against SuperStock or flywheel. I can understand that it might not have been as inviting because pickup time between rounds was short, so you can reload all your mags really fast, which does kind of get annoying because SuperStock wars get really slow between rounds. But it's general. I think it's been alright. You could have done it.
It's fine. We have like darts cost like 3-4 cents a dart, so just buy like a couple thousand before a war and never reload.
Yeah, just please stop trying to go in the field and pick up all your darts. Buy a ton of darts before you do this. It does really slow down wars as a host. Speaking as a host. That leads into the next point. Advice for players wanting to get into the NIC. Does anyone want to start? Or otherwise I have like a list.
Specifically advice for people who want to like build their first homemade or go to their first like APOC or similar event.
So for going to their first event,
let Dennis take this first. See,
all right.
That's basically more relevant to him.
Go, Dennis.
If I'm giving out advice, I would say like watch Aeromech's videos and get a loaner from like Van or Aeromech or someone. Find someone with a loaner and use theirs first and figure out what you like, and then take your time to like build something. That's basically what I did. Was I showed up to a war without my own blaster. Like I brought a Strife, but I never used it because I borrowed other people's like actual homemades. And like figure out what you like, and then try to build that. And if you enjoy building, then take the time to build it. If you don't really like building things, then Aeromech does commissions. Nick does commissions. You could buy a Caliburn if you don't want to build your own thing. If you want to like something that's really easy to build, you can buy a Caliburn that comes as parts and then put that together. It's like Legos at that point. There's a lot of. I feel like personally, from what I've seen, there's a decent amount of easy ways to get into the hobby. But yeah, I'm sure you guys can speak to that even more.
All right, Chris, you want to go first then?
Yeah, sure. As far as like you show up to your first like DIY war, let's say, if you're not prepared, if you have any kind of degree of coordination with the people going, you can usually say, hey, can I borrow this extra blaster you have for this duration of this game, and then figure it out from there. And just having the feel of that is like, wow, I really like this, or wow, this is not the one I want. You can kind of just get a feel of the different types of blasters you have just by seeing what everybody has, because everybody has different tastes. I've seen people swear on pump snaps, and I will never touch them, but it's all everybody's different play style, and find what you like and go from there. As for building your first one, just get yourself a decent workspace, and this is a lot of where my philosophy comes from, is you don't need a CNC machine, you don't need a mill, you don't need any of that. You need a vise, you need maybe a work table, you need some files, and you need some kind of cutting implement. And you can do almost anything. Oh yeah, and a drill. But these things are pretty simple. Don't be intimidated by them, and just take it step by step. There's a lot of great resources, again, on NerfHaven, from myself, from other people that have been in the hobby much longer than I have. So the resources are out there, just got to do a little bit of digging.
I would like to add to Chris directly. If you're doing that, please put on eye protection when you work. Please use gloves. Be safe.
Yes.
Open the windows. Use ventilation too.
Yeah, don't. You should have some understanding of building. I know it's easy to jump in. I know we're saying it's easy, but there are some safety precautions you should take. Just look up general stuff. Don't drill into your hand. Don't cut toward yourself. I know as a city kid, like I wasn't really taught these things. I learned a lot of them through the hobby. But there are a lot of safety aspects you should take into that are really obvious to us, but may not be to you.
Yeah, we've messed up enough times so you don't have to. So go to Harbor Freight, get the $1.50 eye protection, get the $3 gloves, and even that's going to be fine. Just give yourself something to protect yourself from, cutting yourself with a saw, which has happened to me.
Don't drill into yourself. Don't cut to yourself. Those are really basic. But that kind of leads to my point. I think that if you enter the hobby, like besides those basic things, if you were going to join a DIY war, you could just show up without anything at all. I could totally see that there's usually people with loaners, like for SuperStock wars. You have people that have loaners and stuff that will hand stuff out. We're not all dicks. I'm a dick, and I have stuff that I'll lend out to you. I think at APOC I issued out like 7 homemades. If you go to a war and you really want to bring something of your own, and homemades seem impossible for you, and you're poor, build the flywheel. It's going to be quoted and shit. You can, I think NIC can get a top tier flywheel for like $50. Like printed cage, fly ass wheels, or whatever Phil recommends for his wheels, some motors, and then whatever you need for a lipo. I think you can get under like 120, and then like darts, which are dirt cheap. Riot. You can just go to war with that. Again, high rate of fire, that's fine. You can show up with a stock blaster. I know in California, Rival has been really competitive with DIY stuff because you just have to get close. And that's great out of the box stuff. If you want to take a homemade route, I think the easy thing to do is either print out a ton of parts for the PCSR and get the parts you need, which is going to be a little expensive, but it's a fun learning experience. It's a cool project. You have a higher end homemade blaster that'll make you feel up there. If you're making darts for homemades, SCS all the way. That'll be linked down below. I think the only real way to do DIY. Well, I joined when the Y was prevalent, and that was what everything was really focused on. I would use a Y system over anything else. Optimal barrel. I'll link. Please don't use CPVC unless you have magic. If you use SCS, use like 527 aluminum or 509. 509 is better, but 527 is easier if you want to get everything. If you want to go the full, I want to build every single part of this, but I also am not that experienced and want to have leeway when cutting parts. A CR carbine, the tolerances are very forgivable to make work, and those I made one of those in my bathtub. With again like drum with drill. Those are basic tools you need, and I think those are all the things you need to go to a war. Honestly, I would go to a war without anything, see what you like, and then see what playstyle you like. If you want to be like OFP Phil and adopt a high rate of fire playstyle that's close quarters and move up with spamability, like mags, invest in a Strife and try that out. If you want to try like a mid-tier, mid rate of fire, but also be mag fed and have a little more distance, go like do a caliber, rev shot, one of those long shots or XPT retaliators. If you want to go the full DIY homemade experience, there's a lot of options for that too. Your carbine, there's write-ups, there's video, there's the PCSR, which you can get into. You can commission if you really want to, but I think it's a little expensive. I think Chris is charging like $250 for a rainbow, which isn't that bad for his quality. It's just amazing. And there's a ton of approaches to it. I think there's a lot of easy methods. It's just that people don't know what that is, and the information is not really out there, which I think we're all going to try and share. Because a lot of it's about knowing, because it's not useful to anyone that it's all out there, but they don't know what it is. Like healthcare. Not to make this too political. Anyone else
great segue.
Like healthcare. I mean, it's we have all the technology and all the information, and it's easy to do it. But it doesn't help anybody if they don't know how to, or it's not easy for them to do so. Like, we as I guess vets of this hobby now know how to do these things, have examples, and would take an approachable route. But when we first joined, none of this was obviously clear to us. Some people do need a little bit of help. And while there's like a certain balance, I don't want to spoon feed you everything off of Google.
are things that you could easily find yourself. But more complex questions like, I guess, like, should I use Delrin or nylon? That's debatable. Or there's a few other things I just can't think of. There's certain questions that are okay to be asked, but a general rule of thumb is if you can put it into Google and you don't get an answer, it's okay to ask. Would anyone else like to add on?
I mean, I need to go soon, so just quickly echoing what everyone said. If you're unsure about NIC, just come out and experiment. We've got a bunch of loaners you can use. You can try different things. You can try basically any level of power you want, from a 4B to a SuperStock, like pretty much anything, any kind of dart styles, like whatever you want. Like, see what you like, and maybe you never know. Maybe you find something that you didn't know you liked before, and you want to get into it. So just come out and have fun.
Yeah, people are nice at wars.
If something breaks, it's probably like 90% not your fault as well. If you come to a homemade war, that's what I usually tell my people that borrow things, just because, I don't know, everything just goes out the window at a war. Everybody that has brought a homemade has had to repair or do
service it on the field.
Yeah, has to do some kind of maintenance on there. So, like, you know, don't be intimidated if your
stat breaks.
Your superlative catch degrades. That happened the first time with mine, and so I had to do some more experimenting with that. So that's where I'm at with that.
I want to say also that some bigger wars, people have tools and could help you fix your homemade on the field. I remember fixing some kid's plus bow or something, pump action bow, with someone's drill and using some extra screws that we found to make it pump action because something broke off. Like, I think just attending the war itself is really helpful. Will, would you like to say anything?
Yeah, for getting into high velocity NIC nerf.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. So bring up some good points of like snap carbines, pullbacks. Those are really easy to. They're pretty easy to build. They're pretty easy to build. Most of it is at your lows down this, in your town. I mean, you got to order springs, but that's pretty minor in the scheme of things.
You could buy them off people in groups now.
From my own experience of living in Southern Virginia, not near a community, that was always annoying for me. So you have that aspect. I really do want to emphasize that, like, buying XBZ or even if you don't feel confident in machining PVC, like there's Lanard hand cannons, Lanard quad shots. I mentioned XBZ, Big Blast, pump action shotgun, long shots especially, even XPT retaliators, which, like, I brought an artifact long shot and an artifact XPT retaliator to APOC, and I lent them out, and they would enjoy them, and they would use them, and they were really competitive with homemades. They're expensive, but if you don't feel confident in your ability to machine plates, machine PVC, that's fine. I mean, of course, the reason why we do PVC, why we do polycarbonate, is that, like, compared to a fully decked out Singapore long shot, which would be very competitive, compared to that, PVC is just so much cheaper, and you build it rather than buy it and install it. So, for people in the United States who, like, have this stuff, have bought artifact kits, have bought those, that's more than competitive, and you do fine with it. But as for homemades and DIY, go the carbine route. Watch Aeromech videos. Go to NerfHaven. It's all there, and they're great.
So I also want to add on too, like, overall, I think people are spending more and more money in this hobby. It's kind of
definitely.
I know homemade seem like, oh wow, all these costs for, like, tools, and then, like, parts. Everything you need to build a homemade, I think, can come up to under 200.
especially like a sear carbon. You can
No,
you have
carbon. No.
sear carbon
you buy
expensive parts.
build like 3 more.
Yeah, and that's the thing with homemade. It's not even a large investment anymore. I know that a lot of people like Nickrarri's Strife. What's that called? Whatever, Biohazard. That's going for like 1.5k. Singapore long shot loadouts, they are like 400ish, and that's not including mags. For DIY, you just have to have like you put on a hopper, you buy the darts, you make the darts, and you don't have to reload anything. There's no gear stuff you have to make compatible with it too. I mean, you can always make homemade gear, but a dumb pouch or a cargo pocket works.
Like just a SuperStock loadout, not even including NIC's perfect blasters. Not even counting that. Like
it'll be the same
an
cost.
HVZ loadout. An HVZ loadout is like what? So you got your cage, your all the internal stuff, and then people love decking their stuff out with worker tack rails and all that mess. And it's like people buying, the 22 worker mags, which are like $15 a pop. I mean,
like 7 of them on them.
Compared to a rainbow pump, a hopper mag, and like a bunch of darts. I mean, I dare say that NIC is far cheaper than SuperStock, HVZ. Like, I mean, of course, it depends on what you run, but the investment, high-end SuperStock build versus a high-end NIC build is, I would dare say, much lower.
Cheaper, even with tools. The tools you'll end up using anyway. I found a lot. Maybe this is not for everyone, but I think that a lot of the tools I have for just like a Dremel drill and some other stuff. I recently got a belt sander. Have been helpful for like home applications and general things you want to build at home for other things, like if you have to repair stuff.
Oh yeah, I mean, compared to my mom always asks me, "Oh, can you fix the door? Can you, fix the tiles in the kitchen?" Like all of this stuff and I have the limited experience with cutting and machining things. You get that from. I mean, yeah, you get that from this hobby, but also this part of the hobby. It's not dropping kit parts in, and you get a 200 FPS blaster. You're machining plastic, you're machining PVC, and you get a 200 FPS blaster.
Oh yeah, at least to add, get a filtration mask too while you're at it. That's good for safety.
Yeah.
And if you're doing paint too, this leads to the end of the episode. This is like 3 hours. Is it 3 hours at this point? 2 something? I could go on. I could definitely go on. I wanted to touch on like SuperStock and HVZ. I want to talk about like our experiences in other parts. We're gonna go and also rip Rob, but end on the future of the NIC. We touched this, but what are we looking forward to in the future of the NIC to the rest of us? Chris, would you like to speak on that?
Sure thing. I want to see more people like just building. I think there's a lot of commission work going on out there, and I appreciate that absolutely. You get some fine people doing some fine work, as many of the people in this chat right now. But my whole kind of goal with this was to always make manufacturability easier in a lot of my builds. So I want to see more people getting into the mechanical arts, I'm going to say. So I want to see more people building. I want to see more people trying and failing and trying and failing and succeeding after that. My first rainbow pullback was pretty awful. It failed after probably maybe 200 shots. I've never brought it to a game. I made a video on it ages ago, but try this stuff out. It's really cool, and you can get yourself into a lot of interesting situations with that, just because it is such an unusual hobby. So I want to see more people building. I want to see people posting this stuff and innovating and doing the stuff that's never been done before.
Will, would you like to go?
Yeah, okay. So this has a lot to do with proliferation of mass-producible homemades, especially really the main one right now is the Caliburn, obviously. I'm really intrigued to see like how that's gonna move the hobby. So, I mean, this past APOC, there were what 3 or 4 Caliburns.
7.
Seven? Really? Damn. So you had your NIC guys like Lucy, and you had Slug using Caliburns, right? Well, that's cool. But you also had the containment crew guys who all got Caliburns, and they brought them. And they, I think they had a pretty good time. I think they played pretty well. I mean, my concerns about that Caliburn aside, like buying Caliburns, people want to come and do high velocity NIC nerf, which I think is great. And alternatively, you can put in a weaker spring and use Caliburns and like HVZ and SuperStock, which I think is also great. So in that regard, I'm excited to see filtration of SuperStock people into NIC DIY and UltraStock. But I'm also excited to see when get into the SuperStock and even HVZ realms. I mean, I know Aeromech brought that rocket launcher thing to the triple rocket launcher to. I mean, he didn't. I understand he didn't really use it, but it's still cool to think that these skills can filter over in somewhat meaningful ways. So that's what I'm excited for.
Stay tuned for Endwar 2018.
Yeah, boy.
Yeah, boy. Dennis, would you like to end on anything, or do you want to be the closing note?
I'm good. I'm excited for basically. I think everything's been said so far, but I'm excited for the merger and the continuation of both sort of threads of the Nerf community advancing. I want to see what's next in the homemade arena. I want to see what Phil comes up with next in the flywheel arena. I want to see like where those two go and how the two playstyles merge and that sort of thing. That's what I'm excited for.
I guess I'll finish this off. I'm excited for more people to shoot. Would love that.
Classic.
Can't wait.
Classic.
And on that note, thanks for listening.
Wait, I have another thing. More OFP Phil stuff, yeah. Excited for OFP stuff because I think that that's more competitive for the lower end of high velocity. All right. There was one more thing, but I forgot. You can end it now.
Okay. Thank you guys for coming on. Thank you everyone who listened for listening. I know this was a really long one about things that are very niche, but if you managed to stick all the way through, thank you very much. Everyone wants to say a few closing thoughts and sign off, and then thank you for listening.
Well, I'll start, I guess. It was a pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Dennis. And I relish at the opportunity to put out more stuff this year.
Would you like to go, Will?
Yeah. So I'm a nobody in regards to the nerfing community, but I was somewhat invited, and I'm glad I got the opportunity to talk in that sense. I don't think I mentioned this, but like I'm a long time NIC Nerf guy, but I currently run the HVZ, and my name is Will McLaughlin on Facebook. I'm on Nerf Mod is Welcome. I'm on most of the Nerf groups, so please contact me if you have any interest. And I think we got a pretty good discussion, and I was really happy to talk to everybody. So yeah.
Dennis, would you like to go?
It's my show, Van. You go first.
Alright, I was glad that there's more people that weren't as popular, like Will and me, that are here, and Rob, people that you may not know because it gives more of a hands-on experience. I wanted to plug OFP Phil again because I love his stuff, and also the award that's in Connecticut. That'll be November 18th, I think. There should be a link. If you made it this far and you stuck through everything, I'm glad. Even if one person learned, I had a lot of fun with this conversation. I wish we could have talked about more stuff, but that probably would have made it longer. 2 hours, and we haven't even hit on everything I would have loved to, but it's okay. This is really long, and props to anyone who makes it through this.
Also, thank you to Nick and Rob, who were here but had to leave early. Thanks for all their insights on this. And I will have links to everyone's whatever they want to link to in the description of the video. Anyway, that does it for us. Thank you guys so much for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode. Integrations, maybe. We'll see. Hopefully things work out. Thanks, everyone.